Well, how do you doing? This is Dr. Chris Lemmon, and this is part two of the Big View, right? So once again, this is part of the Q&A series, and I had someone say, rather than all these short pieces, can you kind of scope a big view together? So it's going to take a few of these. I've got them in around 45, 50 minutes so that you can look at them at your leisure. Uh, Most people like little short snippets and really don't care about the big view at all, but all of the above, right? And so it's just kind of fun playing with it. Uh, we talked for 45, 50 minutes last time, didn't even get to consciousness when we started looking what's going on with the human. My whole focus in all doing all this work is to start to notice what's influencing you and what you influence, and to be able to be a little more conscious of it and kind of play with it a little bit and start to see what's going on for you. You know, uh, some things are not so easy to feel. Some things are really easy to feel. We get mad at someone, we feel it real quick. We get happy, we feel it. You guys send a donation in, I feel ecstatic. All those things come into play. So we have a tendency to see when balance is adjusted, when we're influenced in some way, shape, or form. But some aren't so easy to see. I actually, because I'm concerned about my health, I'm getting older. And so I weigh myself every day for quite a few years now, except on vacations. So I can notice real quickly what I eat for dinner. If I eat a little bit of something with flour in it, like pasta or something, I will gain usually on an average of 3 pounds overnight. And it takes me about 3 days to get that back off. So these are just markers to look for balance in your body, right? And because my background is in psychology, we're really looking at markers as how do you feel about that? How's that working for you? Those are the kind of approaches. Like, could we reframe that? Could we put that in a different context? So that's the scope of it. Is it difficult to make changes? Yes, it's difficult to make changes. But there's a lot of reasons why it's difficult. Really, our brain, when it gets a pattern down to do things a certain way, it's called a pattern. It sees it as a pattern. It literally locks it in with neurotransmitters. There's a whole chemical process that goes on in there too. That's part of what makes it so tough to change. There's a lot of variables going on outside of my field, right? So nice to look at those things. I most certainly read about them, but once again, I don't have any tools to work with. So I work with what we have to work with. All the focus is directing quality of life, right? So I was talking last that somewhere about talking about your brain's function is to keep you alive, obviously. And so it makes predictions. It predicts what's going to happen so it can set your metabolic rate in your body and a healthy level for you to go into certain circumstances. And it makes predictions and it adjusts those predictions. So it's normal to feel like it has to keep searching. So it doesn't ever think it's perfect. It just tries to get close. Now, what facilitates that is that we do build a database. So uh, in animals, they sometimes talk about instincts. In humans, we talk about intuition. It's most certainly a database in there. And it means if a situation is really close or very similar to something, we'll just assume it's the same. So literally, we abandon the search, we abandon the update, and we just flip over and boom, assume as. Assumptions are kind of a dangerous thing. It works actually pretty good. It's extremely fast. So it's a lifesaver. On a lot of occasions, you might have to adjust on the fly, but most certainly if it's just get out of the way of a car, it doesn't matter if it's a blue car, a red car, or a green car, you want to get out of the way. So it's not bad. But in a changing world where the difference between every situation is really big compared to normally small, then it doesn't work as well. So it it's not a guarantee. It's not like, yeah, this is going to get us through everything. So right now, we're all so polarized today in this world because we're all hanging on to an edge somewhere, trying to figure out what's going on because our intuitive base is not quite working for us. But it's not like we can tell the truth from a lie because we're really easy to lie to. We we calibrate off of something other than the story they're telling us. If the story sounds really good, we think they're telling the truth. That We look for markers that are really odd. Uh, if we make a good prediction and it all works out and we don't get run over by a car, we think, whoa, wow, I did that good. We feel confident. That confidence, those sense of feelings, you start to learn, pay attention to, really what to pay attention to and find out, wow, somebody told me a story and it sounded like a really good story. Is that tell me are they telling me the truth? All right, you're going to have to probably do a little digging. I do a lot of digging. When somebody quotes something online, or I look at a news feed or something, and they reference some research paper or something, I look it up. I got a file cabinet over here full of research papers. They don't exactly tell the truth. They just kind of fudge a little bit, and you read something and you relate it to someone else, it may be a little off, and that might not be an intentional lie. It just you really need more information. The problem is that it's willing to operate and conserve energy and take a shortcut. And I'm a big advocate of shortcuts and cheating, but I'm also a big advocate when something's really important, like your health or your integrity or the people in your family or your neighbors. I think we have to go a little deeper. I think we have to dig a little bit. Okay. So enough for preaching. The database is there. It's a good thing, but it's very noisy. So it just means that it's not a good fit. It's got to kind of wiggle in, right? It's not a really good fit on the best of days, but it's fast. On the worst of days, it really takes you down the wrong road. Yeah. So you might be seeing that. Well, look at the papers, look at everything right now. It's confusing. So we're really geared around finding those feelings when change goes on. So we start to talk about that feeling something is we talk about it in terms of the energy to make it shift or change. The energy just means I feel a certain thing. If all of a sudden it gets hot, we say, wow, I can feel it's getting hotter. Well, that's an increase in the amount of energy of the heat. So it starts to give you some clues, right? Normally we move and do things. So when we decide to do something, we go, wow, it doesn't feel like I should be doing it right now. So we could say, I don't feel the energy coming in for me to do it right now. That's a really legitimate feeling. I have projects to do and I'm sitting there thinking, well, I got to get this done. Well, I've been in this body long enough. I know if I go out and rush something and try to get it done, it's just going to get messed up. I really got to kind of like, in my head, I think I got it all figured out. But when I get in the middle of it, I find it's like, oh, wow, I don't have this tool, or I need a paintbrush, or I got to go do this. Right. So I really need to sit with it a little bit. I can feel it, but I don't feel quite the completion of it. I don't feel that energy saying, yeah, let's go do it right now. Boom, let's go do it. So that's what I start to look at. Those markers, those pieces that start to tell you, not a perfect system. It's very noisy system no matter what, right? We used to think that noise was relatively insignificant, maybe 10%, And now today with all the research coming in, it looks like noise probably in professional judgment decisions, judges, insurance brokers, doctors, medical people, it could be upwards somewhere 40 to 50%. So we're getting pretty close to randomness with noise in our system that's supposed to secure things for us. Not good news, right? So that's why we've been doing classes. We've been playing with all this stuff so that we could actually eliminate some of that noise and get to a little more firm footing as you progress forward. Well, it doesn't mean I know. We'll talk about that in a minute. It just means that we got a little more secure footing as we move forward. Okay. So feelings are what we look at. Emotions, emotions to me is flow of energy, right? We like to label things, right? So we put labels and everything. So we sit up and we say, well, you hurt my feelings. Oh, well, what does that mean? If somebody tried to put a knife in me, that hurts my feelings? Or does someone just say something insulting? Did that hurt my feelings? Or did someone just counter a proclamation I made? I said, oh, I think you're wrong. Did that hurt my feelings? You see how vague this is? So I think that the connective piece is that all of a sudden we notice that when something occurs that's not in our prediction, we feel that change and we go, oh, wow, wow, I feel that. Wow, that's interesting. You know, so I'm not so quick to label that. Yes, someone just told me maybe I really need to pay more attention to what I'm saying or what I'm doing. I love questions because it gives me a chance to clarify things. I say things and I have a thought in my head. Come on, you've all done that. And it comes out sounding like something else, or it's interpreted somewhere else, or someone else has a tender spot or a hot button, or come on, we got terminology for all this that goes astray. We know this stuff, right? So what we really have to do is pay more attention. Look at your audience. Gosh, I talk to people and then someone comes back and said, well, I heard you do this talk before. You did it this time differently. I said, look at the audience. Look at the total audience that I have. I have to now say it differently because so I have a relationship with the audience. I feel that, right? So I'm using that sense or feeling, that empathy level, whatever you want to call it, that gives me an interaction or a feeling so I can play off of that. Just like going in a dark room, you might know the room, you might not, but you're still feeling around for the coffee table or the light switch or the couch or the chair or whatever, or body laying in the middle of the floor, anything, right? So your caution is up, your feelings are up. I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah, sometimes it's really laissez-faire, but even when you're hanging with a bunch of friends, sitting around having a beer, just talking about something, you can still just easy step on someone. So when you play with a little bit, if they're a friend, they'll say, hey, what do you mean by that? And I said, okay, let me explain what I was trying to say. Because sometimes it just comes out. That doesn't make you a bad person. It just means it's where you're tracking. What caught your attention? This is all about influences. Get this? That's what we're doing. Okay. So makes a really big difference. All right, let's get into the conscious piece. God, this is such a weird way, an odd thing that we have this conscious of self thing. It's really not so odd when you think about the perspective of I'm looking out at the world and I see the world going on, but I'm not in the picture. Oh, yeah, maybe if there's a mirror or a lake or something, you're in the picture, but for the most part, you're not in the picture. You're the witness. I see this going on. I can see this backdrop that you guys see on my screen, but if I turn around and look behind me, it's just a green screen back there. So, we got an illusion going on. The world's full of illusions, right? So when we start to when we start to look at those, we have to then imagine us in it. I walk into a party and I look around and it looks like it's everybody's having fun. I can imagine me at the party. I can imagine me going to talk to some people I just recognize and go, wow, I haven't seen them in a long time. I'll go over and talk to them. I got me in it. So we say that we produce a story to integrate us into it. So it's like, oh, I'm present. I'm here. Oh, uh, we could go to a party and have everybody like you. We could go to the party and have nobody like you. Come on, I know people that say, I don't go to parties because no one talks to me and nobody tries to be friendly. And if anybody talks to me, they say some smart ass thing. And like, wow, what an interesting setup. So we're really, when we start to talk about consciousness, we're really saying we need information flowing in with better predictions so that we can integrate an idea of us into the package of the experience right now, right? And I call those events. An event occurs right now. I got to figure out who I'm going to be in the event and how that's going to work out. And if it doesn't work out, I got to be able to step back and change that and then come forth in another way, right? I think we all do that automatically. You go to visit your mother, you're a different person when you go out on a date or you go hang with some dear friends or you're on a job interview. It's come on, we can become something different. We integrate all this stuff and package it up. We do an amazing job. I like to think of it this way, just because I'm on a silly computer a lot. So it's like a computer, I can make a file called Chris. Okay. So that's my file, the idea of Chris. And I've got lots of written stuff down about the idea of Chris. All right. So those are file. I might start a new file on a regular basis. I call those files ranges, right? So I might start a new file on a regular basis. I might start a file here. All of a sudden I think, okay, here's Chris in there. I'm not all that sure which version of Chris to put into it yet because, it hasn't unfolded enough yet. I may have to adapt it. I just made a prediction. So here I am showing up. I'm happy go lucky, smiling like, oh, here we are, or I'm not. And so I'm in the midst of this, engaging, and then I'm making adaptations. I'm making adjustments. Oh, a little different variation of twist. I got to make a little twist here. I got to turn this a little bit. I got to do this a little bit. Oh, I better be quiet here. Oh, these people are a little cautious or they're a little bit on edge. So I travel in the world. It's really interesting to watch when some people you go and say hi to and they smile and look at you. Other people you say hi to, they back up and are a little frightened. So that means that they have different life experience than you have. And you have to then read that a little bit, get a sense or a feel for that, and then show up in an element of respect for that piece or that relationship doesn't exist. If you don't show up and engage that, they're going to go to that automatic default setting in their intuition, and you no longer have a relationship. You're two strangers at the same location. But we really want to be able to relate to everybody. We can play it, but sometimes I'll come across as harsh or rough or engaging, and then I'll make a joke and I'll shuffle things around and I'll get past their defenses, and then all of a sudden I'll have this warming piece, and then the person's all of a sudden now all of a sudden we're communicating better. All right, all those things you guys have experienced this, right? So this is the little blessing of consciousness. The downside piece is depending on the intuition all the time to get us to the right place. It's not always getting us to the right place. Sometimes we have to really stop, burn some brain cells, burn up some calories, and think about something, make a better plan. Sometimes we have to step back and say, okay, I need to reapproach this. That doesn't take very long. If you pay attention, you can start to do that. So let me show you, and this is what we play with. We play with tools to learn to do all that stuff because I think it's really important, right? Some people have files that did not go well at all. So I might be Chris version 276. I can remember when I got my first haircut. Yes, the memory's pretty fragmented because it's been a long time. And it's been a long time since my last haircut because I don't grow any hair. But I remember my first one. It's like I had a quarter and I went to the barber shop. The barber was in a basement. Kind of the house had steps to go in the front door. So he was kind of like subset. So you just walk down a couple of steps and there was a basement. He had his barber shop in there. I got up on that stool and I gave him my quarter, and he cut my hair, and I think I cried the whole way through the whole experience. The noise got me. I didn't. When my grandmother said, "Go get your hair cut," I thought cut. I didn't know that he was going to run a lawnmower over my head. It's like zzz, a buzz thing. It was kind of intimidating. I could feel a little tremor in my body. It's like, oh my goodness. I know that sounds silly, but I remember leaving that barbershop and sitting there on the sidewalk thinking, wow, that was an interesting experience. It was new. I never had anybody buzz that over my head. Like, it wasn't a bad experience. I had learned even back then when I had some kind of experience, because I spent a lot of time alone. I was one of those kids, 5, 6 years old. I just leave and go wander around for hours, days, and come back. I was supposed to get back before dark or I was in trouble. But, I left after breakfast. I'd get back around 5. So I was an adventurer, most certainly. So I would sit there and wow, that was interesting. And then kind of sit with it a little bit. Yes, the next time I got a haircut, it was just, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I got up there, I pulled up there, I gave him my quarter, he cut my hair, and it was a breeze, like not a problem. There was no unknowns. Boy, the unknowns really get us because they put us into some kind of state that we didn't need to be in. I was just misinformed with my first haircut. All right, you guys have had similar experiences, I'm sure, in every aspect of life. I have had it happen again. All right, so I play with a very simple pattern tool. So remember, it's the logical world is all pattern driven pieces, right? So even the air we breathe, everything's just form, structure, patterns. So one of the pattern pieces is internal, external. And that basically means that when I'm creating this idea of Chris at the party or Chris outside on a walk, although I don't see Chris walking, but I see the ground moving and I'm going along a trail. And so I'm assuming that Chris is walking and the eyes are attached and we have this depth perception, the hearing, and all these sensory data is giving me time signature information. So I'm translating all that and making a prediction. I'm headed down there and hopefully the right trail, and I'm not all that lost, or if I am lost, I at least enjoy it, uh, and can play with all that. Okay, that's the internalized piece, a sense of feeling like, what does that feel like doing that? But then I also have an externalized piece out there. What does it feel like out there? Right? It's like, what's it feel like in here, but what's it out there like? When I'm looking at something coming up, what is that like? It's almost as if I'm seeing me. Do I see a bear in the woods? Do I want to go say hi to the bear, or do I want to go the other way? Right? The witness out there starts to communicate a little bit. It's like, oh, be careful. Or I'm going around a curve and all of a sudden I get this sense of, and it's like, oh, I'm looking down at something and I'm thinking, I can do this. And then all of a sudden I've got an external view saying, I don't know what it looks around like around the corner. So now all of a sudden I'm being cautious. But there's an externalized piece of you going on out there, right? So, like you're a ventriloquist, you can throw your voice, but literally it's you watching you seeing through. Sometimes you just remember what happened and you can actually visualize you falling off a ladder or stepping on a hose and almost falling, or saving the day, start to spill something and grab it and save it and think, oh, wow, I saved the day, and you can then visualize that. You can imagine that, right? It's all imagination. You imagine you in it. You can imagine the view of you. You have an external and internal. They operate a little different. That database that's inside of us on the internal piece, that is the intuitive piece, it sits in there and it operates with the internal. It selects things, it goes through it, it's all unconscious, it's picking all these things, it's staging it all up because it operates really, really fast. You can override some of it, but you got to be really quick because it's really fast. The triggers go boom, 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 boom. So you find yourself in the middle of it, right? You're having a conversation and someone said to you, when you're talking to Bob, don't mention the fact that he's fat, and all of a sudden you mention something about his weight, and then you go, oh, wow, somebody told me he takes offense and I forgot it, right? That happens to us, right? Just even though we have the information, somewhere we just got into a sequence or a pattern. So really gets complicated when you get that conscious of self, internal, external. So the little thing I like to do, I like to play with knowing and unknowing. So I will take, and at a point of birth, perhaps internally, you don't know anything. Maybe not quite a blank slate, because we have tested children very, very young, and they seem to have preferences. I think I mentioned that in the other talk. So we're not totally a blank slate, but then there really is some learning that goes on before your birth. So who knows for sure, right? But here you are, not quite knowing and not have all the skills yet to be able to assess things. It takes quite a few years, 14, 15, 16, so for some people 50, 60, 70, anyway, whatever, to make assessments for all those things. And so you've got this element external, which is now looking at a thread of possibility from the external. What really happened? Sometimes you get involved in a car accident, you got to kind of close your eyes and say, what really happened? And you kind of get a view of, like, you're standing in a corner watching it. If you've never done that, well, then that's fine, but you can do it. Had a lot of people come up with it. Wow, felt like I was coming this way, but then I wound up over there. I don't know how I got turned around in the car. I've had lots of people tell me that conversation. And it's like, I guess something happened. I said, just relax a minute and just kind of close your eyes and imagine you're watching it from above. What happened? And all of a sudden they go, oh wow, that's interesting. And now they have a different story. So that information they collect. So I like to go, well, maybe inside's unknown, outside's unknown. Okay. If inside's unknown, outside's unknown, forget the database. It's useless. That's familiar. It's based on known. It's not going to work. So I need to go find a resource. I need to Google it or talk to a friend or it's not known. I can't make something up and assume it's going to be known. It's not. Then sometimes I've got a known inside and an unknown outside. Okay, well, then it tells me I'm running off a database, that database inside. Sometimes I got a totally unknown inside and a known outside. In other words, I can remember the first time I was skiing down through the flags, going in between. We used to have these races, right? When I was a skier. So I can remember practicing it, but the first time that I ran, it's like trying to get everything together, the timing, the coordination, the lean, the balance, it was, there was practice, but not quite enough practice. Really, my timing practice was actually better than my timing first run. By the third run, I got it down pretty close to what I did in the practice. Just because the energy becomes a little different when someone's watching you, when the attention's on you, when the clock's on you, you got people spectating and you're coming, you're moving. You're like, boy, it makes a difference, right? I can remember an interview one time by a guy that was a bowler and he just became a pro bowler. So he was on a bowling. Don't ask me why I was watching bowling. I was in a bar restaurant eating and somebody was watching bowling, not me. But nonetheless, they were watching bowling and they said, this guy had been a pro and this is what his numbers were. He was like really, really good. But this was his first time as a pro on TV. So his score dropped a little bit because of the fact that the television influenced him in some way, shape, or form. And I go, wow, that's kind of interesting. So we get those type of pieces. Outside gets different information than the inside. This is what's really fun. The outside can look at stream of potential. It can get all kinds of data out there because this doesn't have the limitation and range that we have in here, right? We just have, remember I said 7 plus or minus 2 in a conscious range? We just have a little piece. Our range is pretty small. But the outside version of us, we can imagine what we could do, right? Imagine what you're doing is outside, doing it is inside. So I imagine I could climb that hill. Yeah, I could be up that hill in 2 hours. Well, and then you start climbing the hill and 2 hours later, you know whether you were right or not. So where was that original idea? Inside? If I never climbed before and I didn't have references, it has to be outside. So I'm just basing on an assumption outside. I'm pulling in the possibilities outside. Where are those possibilities from observation, from all of that is out there somewhere. So the outside brings in information, not always very accurate because it hasn't been tried out, but it's most certainly an external prediction of a possibility. You've all met people that look at something and say, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. And then you got to talk them into it. And then when they're done, they go, wow, I didn't think I'd be able to do that. Oh, okay. That means they didn't have an outside reference. I see other people come along and say, that's dangerous. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's dangerous. Now, you ready to do it? It's like, wow. Do you have an outside reference? Can you imagine that being done? That's an outside reference. Can you see the potential in that? Can you imagine that being done? Okay. If you can't imagine that being done, don't do it. That's just real simple. Don't do it. Because then if something happens, you're not going to be prepared for it. So you have to be able to imagine that external reference. So when I start to get into a new situation, I kind of go inside. Do I know this or do I not know this? I think I know this. Okay, outside. Let me go out there. Wow. Do I know this or do I not know this? Can I imagine? Can I see me doing this? How am I doing it? Okay, give me a little pattern for how I'm doing it, an icon. And let's bring that icon in here and let's take my icon, the way I'm going to do it, two symbols, match them up. Oh, wow. The symbol from the outside is different than the symbol from the inside. We may have to update. I may have had an imagination of doing it in a unique way. Innovation, creativity, inspiration. Where does that come from? Doesn't that come from outside? How many people are working on a paper and can't express themselves right, or can't work the math or something, and they go for a walk or they take a weekend off and then they come back and boy, it all flows in. That's outside. It all flows from outside. It just comes in from that external reference. It all comes flowing in. There's a couple of steps that you've got to learn when you start to play with that. You've got to put a little filter in there, right? So that you don't have something coming in that wouldn't be possible for you to do because maybe you're too short, right? Or you couldn't reach it, or, I had a great story. A lady one time said that she was on a road trip and she pulled over to a little picnic area. And there was some rocks and a hillside and trails. And she had a little time in her hand and she was traveling. And she thought, oh, wow, I'd like to climb up that trail. That looks like a great view of this valley. So she climbed up this trail and she's laying on these rocks and she's wedging her way around and they're trying to get a better view, right? And she finally looked like she had a way where she could move out. She moved out and she turned around and all of a sudden she realized that her back was to a rock and she was standing on a ledge that didn't go all the way out under her toes. So she had to lean against it and her heels about halfway on her foot was on the ledge. And she's kind of with her hands behind her thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now. And she was up there for about an hour, not knowing what to do, hoping somebody or something would save her. And then finally she realized she was getting tired of standing there on this ledge trying to balance herself. And she really had to close her eyes. And she just imagined that it would really be simple. All she did was turn around to get in this position. So all she has to do is turn around again. Turn around again. I don't see anything to grab hold of because I can't see behind me, but I know there was something there. Maybe it'd be something easier yet. Okay. She decided that if I stay here long enough, I'm going to get tired and fall off and I'm dead. So I'm just going to go for it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a rotation. I came in from this side over here. I don't get a sense of anything back there. I'm just going to go, I'm going to reach out and grab, spin around and face a wall and see what I can get with an arm's reach. It was so simple. She just reached out, grabbed a ledge. It was right there. She spun around and right there was an opening and she grabbed hold and she just came right in. After she did it one time, she went back and she went through the circle. You just step out on the ledge, you turn around, you spin around, you grab, and you went back in again. It became one fluid move for her after practicing it. It's like, wow. But she couldn't see that because she had not predicted that was going to happen. She had to get outside and see other possibilities. She was stuck in like, I didn't imagine this. So where am I at? What am I going to do? You have to go back to the unknown. She was searching in what she knew. It was not there. Most certainly required a movement, a fluid movement. She come down off the rocks and she said she was so tired. She grabbed a blanket out of her car, threw it on top of the picnic table, laid down, rolled the blanket over top of her and slept. The rest of that all night. The next morning she got up. It was like so exhausted, struggling with her to find something inside for an unknown is not going to be there. So you have to imagine it outside. Yeah. Different approach, huh? For some people. Other people do it constantly, all the time. Yeah, imagine a certain sort of way. Yeah, it's just like, wow. Um, Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time. I see something and I've got an argument for 4 or 5 ways to do it inside. And inside me, there's somewhere saying, I'm not really all that confident that all these different 4 or 5 scenarios are going to work. And then all of a sudden, I step outside, close my eyes, and relax and say, okay, I'm going to look at me doing it. And then I kind of run those scenarios and I go, wow, okay, yeah. Uh, I- I'm not saying it always works perfect. I'm just saying it's better than nothing, right? It's an option that you can play into. Most certainly starts to give you choices. I've got through a lot of things that way that now today, if I had to do over again, I would do differently. But at the time, I was just stunned, right? Just totally stunned. I've been in search and rescue. I don't know how many times I've gone down a hillside on a rope trying to get someone to tie them onto a rope or to have them reach out and pull them, and they're just frightened. Uh, Same with swimming. We've rescued people, and just to get them out of the water, they want to hang on to you. They want to kill you. It's just about trying to, and you got to get them to relax. You got them to float a little bit. You got to pull them. Some of you have had those experiences. They cannot, they're totally inside an unknown looking for something. You will not find it in there. You have to get out. So for some people, getting out is going for a walk. They can't just imagine them looking at them. So they have to do it some other way, right? I just close my eyes and imagine I'm looking at me and watching me perform, and that gives me some data. But yeah, others just got to get inspiration. Sometimes they sleep on it. They wake up in the morning and all of a sudden it's there because during the course of the sleep, they had dreams, which is imagining you do things. To understand that we don't just dream at night, we dream all day, right? Those cycles occur. I've seen video footage of accountants sitting there doing bookkeeping, and they look up and you see their eyelids are in REM. They're actually daydreaming. They look up and for about 5 minutes, they're not doing anything. And then they look back down and they just continue back where they left off. They have no idea that they lost time. Daydreaming. They went external. They went somewhere else looking at another possibility. This mechanism wasn't engaged in it. Your body wasn't engaged in it. You're out here. Kind of cool, huh? All right. So that's the skill set we start to play with when we start to say, wow, I need to feel this in the world and in me, and I need to engage this. I need to feel this potential in me. I need to adapt that potential if I'm going to relate to you, because then I have to be able to, if I'm relating to you, I have to get a sense of how you're going to relate and where we could have common communication. Otherwise, we just get polarized and we're just waste our time staring at each other, arguing about ridiculousness, right? Where's the meeting ground at? Where do we connect? Is that not the value and the meaning for life, right? The greatest influence is that we have a connection and we both gain from that connection. Whether it's a connection with a person or a tool or a space or whatever that is, right? It's just like, so that becomes the goal that we move towards. We're trying to get into that piece. So it's just a little bit of cheat. I look inside and is what I'm feeling in here right now, is that really known to me or is this unknown? Am I just making a wild guess? What's my feeling of certainty? I like to call it arrogance. Am I arrogant enough to pull this off? Confident enough to pull? That's a little more than confidence. I'm not talking about narcissism. I'm just talking about, it's like, because some people say, well, I think I can do it, but I'm not sure. No, confidence is, I think I can do it. I'm pretty sure I can do it. Yeah, get out of the way. Let me try it. Doesn't mean that you have to be successful. You learn from trying. That's the whole idea, right? But if it looks like it's dangerous, looks like you get hurt, or looks like you're not quite confident with it, you not have that piece of it, you can't muster that little bit of like, I'm away, I can do it. Maybe, I don't know. Let me try. If you can't muster that, then you need to step back a little bit, take a look outside and get more information. There's a lot of information available. That data flows all the time. We are constantly bombarded, constantly influenced. Tons of research has been done. They got someone in a group seeding them with ideas. They test all the people and they all pick up the idea without any communication at all. So we get affected, and even over a distance. If a relative is thinking about you, you could be affected. You could all kinds of, we hear stories that take us into the world of what I call phenomena. That's a phenomena that occurs that's not part of the logical world. There's no connection for it, but most certainly it occurs. We can't even have a conversation about it. And of course, if we went to talk to a professional of some sort, they'd think that, something's wrong with us because there was no connection. It just means there was nothing in the logical world. Doesn't mean there's not something that someone could imagine. Creativity is the ability to imagine, right? So people that invent things imagine it differently. That's what they do. So that's an inventor. So people are very creative. People that adapt to things, that find shortcuts, that can figure something out real quick. Yeah. They just make adaptation. They make some changes. They come up with some solutions that are novel and unique. So that's not from a database. That's imagined. So that imagined piece is somewhere out there, not in here, because this is full of stuff. This is stored stuff in here. Remember, we don't know where that memory's at for sure, right? We got it in memory, but we don't know where that's at. So we have some clues of how it accesses, or at least what parts of the brain engage when we're looking for something, but it doesn't take very long to access it. It's fast. To analyze it takes a little bit longer, but not that much longer. We're not talking about minutes and minutes and minutes. But you've all engaged in a project and you're halfway through it, and then all of a sudden oh, wow, I just figured a shorter way to do it, a smaller way to do it. Well, that's because you went inside and you said, I know how to do this. And you did, and you started doing it. And as you were in the midst of it, more data came in because now you're doing it in the world. Instead of seeing you doing it in the world, you're now doing it in the world. Same learning. And now that you're engaged in doing it in the world in real time, you then say, oh, I see this. And then you think back and said, wow, I think I even thought about that and then wrote it off before I started. I could have saved myself some time. I've had so many people tell me that. So this is kind of where we sit. So I'm going to close this one. I think this is fine for now. We give you a little bit of a tool, knowing, not knowing. You can look internal, external, start to see where those feelings are at, play with that a little bit. This is kind of like the big view. We have taught these kind of things for years. When we come back in the next one, I'm be out of town for a couple of weeks. When we come back in the next to the big view series, we'll talk, sum up a little bit more of the logical world and then start to look at phenomenal world. So you can kind of get a sense of these two things that kind of we exist in at the same time. This crazy ideas. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's imagined. So that means it's possible. Possible's cool. I like possible. All right. So thank you very, very much. And so this is Dr. Chris Lemmon at wizardscatch.com. If you have any questions, why you can contact me and send your questions to Chris at wizardscatch.com, and I'll be glad to entertain them and see what I can do with them. Operate computer. There we go.